What is happening to Melia and the Okruashvili and Zoya, Japaridze and possibly Gvaramia today is going to be happening to us tomorrow because we are next.
Any concessions in any form would be seen as weakness.
Even Gaddafi could not retain his power using the brutal military tactics. So
when Gaddafi was using it, so he believed that it would help him.
Exactly.
So he is in the same situation.
But will he do it? Probably no. But this way still exists.
So he wants to run the country with a single phone call and get all his orders executed with a single phone call.
Unfortunately, we lost Rubio, yes, to deep state. All the best to him, but I hope that Liverpool wins this year. They will definitely gonna win a league.
Well, they did already.
They did. They did already.
You are not necessarily Mr. Current Affairs about football.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Talk Georgia Question Time with me, Giorgi Rukhadze.
And with me, Nodar Kharshiladze.
This is a special edition of Talk Georgia where Nodar and I will be answering your pressing questions about the key developments of Georgian and international politics.
This format is brought to you by Droeba Media Group, trusted source of news and informational analysis.
And by GSAG, a think tank offering comprehensive political analysis of Georgia and wider Black Sea region, also academic and practical training for postgraduate students and mid-career professionals.
So now let's go to your questions. And we have a number of those.
We've got a number of those, and I'm going to read out the first one, which comes from Zoya. By the way, if you want your questions to be answered on the next show, please send them to talkgeorgia1@gmail.com. You see the email on the screen. So what Zoya wrote to us is this. Okruashvili, Japaridze, Melia, tomorrow it would be Gvaramia. How far will Ivanishvili go? And what should the response be? In the past, something like this would have shaken the country, but now it feels like nothing is happening. Okay, I think you can answer that or start answering that, but before that I'll give a bit of a background information for some of those who might not know what is all about. Okay, Irakli Okruashvili, Zoya Japaridze and Nika Melia, three of them are now behind the bars because they refused to turn up at so-called Tsolukiani's investigative commission that is run by one-party parliament and that is allegedly investigating some of those crimes committed during UNM administration.
And post as well, they extended.
Yeah,
and
they
post
extended
as well,
that.
they extended now.
Obviously, almost all political leaders refused to turn up at the committee. Basically what happened is that some of the political leaders paid the bail and the others, including Irakli Okruashvili, Zoya Japaridze, Melia, and also Gvaramia, basically publicly stated that he would not pay this bail. So this is why these people ended up in prison. Another story is how Melia was detained, because what happened was that he was detained a day before the trial.
Court did not cancel his bail. He was not sentenced to any pre-trial jail.
Yes.
But regardless, they arrested him on other charges. I mean, exactly.
And what is interesting, what were the charges? Because apparently he was driving to some TV show and he was stopped on the road and he was arrested on the grounds of insulting a police officer.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's very interesting. So apparently he didn't want to go to the TV show and insulted the police officer and expected that they would arrest him.
Yeah,
but
sure.
but this is what happened, and apparently this happened because the Interior Ministry basically made their job easier. Okay, not to arrest him the next day in court where there will be a lot of people, etc., etc. And also what it shows is that anyone in this country could be arrested without any legal ground, any time, for insulting a police officer. Even my mom, who is now 75 and rarely leaves home, so she could be arrested on that grounds.
Yep.
Okay, well, this is briefly what's going on, and but I think that there are deeper parts in this question that you may start answering.
Well, thank you. Problem is that any analysis have some preconditions. Okay, when you try to analyze something or somebody, you have set set rules for that process. I mean, first and most important rules for analyzing any group or person is how rational they are. I mean, if they're not rational, or if they're less rational, or if they're completely cuckoo, then you can't, because you can't predict actions of the people who do not use the same rational tools as most of the humans would use, because analysis is not the exact science, it's more applicable art, and it tries to take the common behavior and then use the pattern to predict what will be the actions, or to deduct what was the reasoning behind this action. So none of that is working regarding Georgian Dream for last 1 year, I think. There are some of the actions which can be loosely analyzed, but most of them, they are beyond any sober analysis, like 28 November declaration about you. There is no reason in rational world why they needed to do that. I mean, there are some arguments, but none of them can justify that. There is no any reason why they would insult German ambassador, or why would they make enemies in the Congress of the United States, personal enemies. These kind of things are very strange to understand. We can analyze steps leading to them, like that maybe Ivanishvili does not cannot, and nobody can actually fully control everybody, and that some rogue elements start doing some things themselves. He might be scolding them after that and punishing them, but these guys already did the damage. Or there is no analysis. We discussed about it, why to publish this letter which was published 2 weeks ago. Okay, I mean, and this is one of those things. Now, we can analyze not Georgian Dream's reasoning behind it, but we can analyze what might happen after that now. So this will accelerate everything. It's one thing to talk, okay, even talk stupid things. I mean, and Georgian Dream does lots of it lately. I mean, but the actions are completely different. Like when you start arresting opposition leaders, that does not put you together with Orban, okay, who is mostly populist. That puts you together with Lukashenko, who is the authoritarian. That changes the things. I mean, you tolerate Orban more or less because guy just talks nasty. But if you look at his records, yeah, he does some things, but it's tolerable. Same goes for Fico, for example. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean.
But when you start, then you go to the league of the Lukashenko, and this is a very different field. So now, suddenly, Bidzina Ivanishvili, from being just some strange, weird populist, he just become an authoritarian guy who puts people in prison based on nothing, simply. I mean, and action itself talks about it, but you mentioned, and that's important, how he was arrested. I mean, they did not even fully follow the procedure. They did not use the system to arrest him.
There was no legal ground whatsoever.
Yeah, so that also shows very low regard to the rule of law, which is a very important part of any developed and Western society in the US as well. So now things will go faster, because now you has to deal with not just some stupid statements of Kobakhidze, but has to deal with political prisoners, which is completely different game. And I think whatever they had in store for the Georgian Dream, and there was nothing pleasant based on now the things will come up faster. I mean, we already saw the statements of number of the countries, and I think that personal sanctions and wider sanctions are now not only likely but way more sooner than we thought. And of course, and there will be even less communications with them. And if they had any hopes of recognition, that will be in vain.
Okay, I think that in this question is that how far will Ivanishvili go? And I think that he will go as far as it gets, because he doesn't really have a chance to turn back. He backed himself in the corner in a way that there is no other way. He has to press. And look, I think what is happening with the other people as well, for example, the two girls, under 20, I think they were sent to prison for verbally insulting Georgian Dream MP Mariam Lash.
It's freedom of speech.
Yeah, and also, morally and legally, if you look at these things, it means that they are basically using their power as much as possible, because any concessions in any form would be seen as weakness and would, I believe, contribute to the future collapse of the regime. This is why the first thing, he will go as far as it gets.
But he doesn't need to.
Well, doesn't need to, but I think, I don't agree with you there. So I think he does need it.
I don't think that he will get anything. There is a false perception that if he does all of them, he will retain his power, which is a false. He will not be able to retain. Even Gaddafi could not retain his power using the brutal military tactics. So he has to understand that he has to lose. But
when Gaddafi was using it, so he believed that it would help him.
Exactly.
So he is in the same situation.
But, yes, but he doesn't need to. What I'm saying, I agree with you that he is, but he doesn't need to. There is a way out for him. It's not kind of fully covered for everything, but just imagine that tomorrow he releases all political prisoners, takes all those back, fires Kobakhidze and brings some normal people, and announces new elections. That would put him back in same league with Fico, and the Europeans will start at least talking with him, okay? So there is a way for him. Now, will he do it? Probably no. But this way still exists. We can't say that he is now in a situation where he doesn't have. We can say that he will not do that, and for the reasons we just talked about it, he is not rational anymore. If he would be rational, we won't be now in this situation at first place. So I think that it's his own doing. And have you heard these rumors about the new player coming in? I have lots of it for the last 3-4 days.
What do you mean?
There is a Georgian origin billionaire living in London now, who made lots of money in Kazakhstan.
I know the guy.
Lomtadze. Yes. So there were several attempts to get him interested in Georgian politics. He even tried himself, but I heard that 2020 he was shut down. And now I heard for last week, literally, from several sources that he is finally stepping in.
Well, that's breaking news.
Yeah, if that's true, but that's not. That will make. That is the end of the Bidzina. That's the beginning of the end for him, literally.
The new Bidzina coming.
With the
2012 is kind of repeating itself.
And unlike in 2012, when Misha at least had international community working with him, Bidzina is way more isolated and in a way worse situation Misha was told to. So maybe that kind of steps will wake him up, but I have a very big doubts about it. So to answer the question of Zoya, finally, he might do anything and everything. He might even arrest us tomorrow. There is a chance for that, for some Mickey Mouse reasons, and you should not be surprised. Unfortunately, we are here.
There are reasons. So we speak English. We speak to international community. So yeah.
So
again, I need to really dig into this question because I think there are interesting things here. Okay, something like this. Arrest of Melia, for example, would have shaken the country, and I think it did when he was he was arrested, and now it feels like nothing is happening.
Yeah, because of what they've done. Lastly, how they, let's say, overruled every principle, and how they manage to put together system which also damages them, which has a regard for nothing. I think these kind of things became quite pedestrian now. I mean, people, we are not surprised because we got used to it. Is it a good thing? No, of course not. Definitely not a good thing. And we need some kind of the wake up. I think this arrest should be a wake up call for Georgian society now that, you know, today is happening to them. There is this famous, let me put my historian hat now a little bit. There was a famous speech, I believe it was in 1936 by Emperor of Ethiopia, Halassi, in the League of Nations, when Italians was occupying his country, international community, and when Germans were helping Italians, international community did nothing. And he said the famous phrase, what is happening to us today gonna be happening to you tomorrow. And it did become a reality. And this French and British, the all guys sitting in the front row, same goes now for the Georgian society. We have to understand what is happening to Melia and the Okruashvili and Zoya, Japaridze, and possibly Gvaramia today is going to be happening to us tomorrow because we are next. And there is no stopping it.
Agree. And also, I mean, what should be the response? I think that also have this lack of response there because the party leaders are arrested and the party needs to do something. There should be response to that. I'm not saying that, you know, just taking up arms and storming, you know, the prisons. No. But very tough civil response should be there in place. Because, again, if you leave it without response, you are absolutely right that there will be a lot more arrests coming. And also, I think from the international community, I believe that, well, all these arrests were widely condemned by international community, and there were a number of very harsh statements. But I think that, well, that's high time that, you know, particularly EU countries individually basically went on action. I mean, went on particular sanctions against some of those who are behind this. And I think everybody understands who are behind this, because if they don't, then things only will get worse.
Yeah, but there is a second thing here. I fully agree and subscribe what you just said. We also need to wake up as a society, understanding that this is no more inconvenience. This is an autocratic regime, and Bidzina is autocrat, who will arrest anybody and everybody perceived threat by him. And I think the degrees of the threat will go significantly lower with each arrest. Today they are arresting direct political, and the one day, as you said, we speak English with respect to international community, why they put them in, and that's it. I mean, that's
one day they might arrest German ambassador, I don't know.
Yeah, they might try.
Right.
Okay, so we have a
do you
next
want to move to the, because we were carried away with this thing,
so Nika is, so he says that Bidzina's people and GD veterans are slowly leaving. Yeah, that's true. And Kobakhidze's men, the new men, yes, are taking over. Is Kobakhidze now the real power? Yeah, that's a question which I also ask myself. What do you think?
Okay, so do you want to give a bit of a background?
Okay, so what happened?
Then I'll tell you what I think.
So what happened this last few months since this rigged election with Georgian Dream organized, that Bidzina's government, in all its 12 years of the existence, always consisted of his personal employees, okay? I mean, the head of his security, deputy head of his security, his accountant, his personal secretary, his assistant, I mean, his financial manager, I mean, even his dentist was at once. She was. So it was kind of his entourage on a government level. Kobakhidze's, and last year, and especially under the Kobakhidze now, it has started to change very quickly. All of the people now, and last Mohican was the Gomelauri, is out. All of them are out, and by replacing Gomelauri, there is nobody now on a ministerial position.
Because still there is Anzor Chubinidze who
runs the special protection service. Yeah. but on ministerial level with portfolio, who was working closely. Karshiladze left, who was a Karto group, and also one more thing which we discussed in one of the previous programs, that Susi, head of the secret police, which is a political police in Georgia, unfortunately, is also now appointed by Kobakhidze, which never was the case. It was Bidzina. So now we have a picture where all the people has direct connections to Kobakhidze. Doesn't mean that they don't know Bidzina. Some of them even might not. But it looks like that he is in charge of putting people together. No other prime minister at no period of the given period of the Georgian Dream since 2012, what was November 1 when they started it. They had never such a power. So that's where question comes from.
Background. So what I mean, my feeling is that again, all those Bidzina's servants are now gone. I wouldn't classify them as Bidzina's friends or even Bidzina's aides. No. I mean, they were kind of servants. Kharibashvili, Komelauri, Liluashvili, and so and so. My feeling is that I think Bidzina is getting tired of dealing with a lot of people. And let's say 5 people is a lot of people for him. Because, I mean, let's say a few years ago, to run a country, he needed to make at least 5 phone calls to get execution of his order, right? I think nowadays what he's trying to do is to limit it to 1 phone call. So he wants to run the country with a single phone call and get all his orders executed with a single phone call. Instead of phoning Gomelauri or Liluashvili or somebody else there, so he now has got the Kobakhidze. So, from his perspective, I believe it makes it for him easier because he's got less communication, less time spent on running this corporation, which is called Georgia for him. Okay, I think that this is the motivation behind it. The second thing could be that, well, because in the light of international sanctions, all the pressure, he wants to show that he's kind of out. And none of his family, friends, or servants, or whatever, are no longer in important positions. So Kobakhidze, you can call him whatever you like, but he cannot be classified as Bidzina's traditional servant. Okay, he didn't hold this umbrella to his children, and
he was never.
He didn't take Vera to the kindergarten.
No, he's different background.
Right. So I think that these 2 things that I think what drives Bidzina. But also, what I believe is that that could be a problem for the GD supporters in at least medium run, because now everybody realizes that, the people who they fought together with all these years, they all are gone. Now, who they are fighting, who they are getting themselves under sanctions? Kobakhidze? Bidzina is also kind of technically gone, right? As this week, the Secretary Tina Khidashvili was on my show, and this is what she basically pointed out, that not only the coalition partners are all gone, now all Bidzina's people and servants are also gone, and everybody in the Georgian Dream, I think, has to ask a question to themselves, who they are serving now, right? And this could produce a crack in the Georgian Dream, at least after some time. What do you think?
Well, I think that Kobakhidze doesn't command any electoral power. I mean, he doesn't have charisma or background for that. I mean, if you look at Bidzina's entry to politics, it was very carefully orchestrated mission, which was successfully accomplished, unfortunately, as we speak in retrospect now for Georgia. But there was this background of the philanthropist, of the invisible man who helps everybody, the art, the church, the everything, the humble person of humble origins, self-made man, and it all worked. I mean, and then he also continued to command that kind of thing. Now, Kobakhidze is kind of weird, though, with the impossible haircut, who speaks very aggressively when cornered. and doesn't, doesn't project any confidence or anything. I think his electoral powers are very low. So you're making very good point. If Bidzina is out of the picture, even if he stays in the shadows, but the entourage or the people can't see that he still exists there, and they start believing that it's Kobakhidze who is not running the shows. And how many of them would like Kobakhidze? Many of them will ask questions, why he? I'll do the better job. Who the hell is he? I mean, why he's better than
what was wrong with Gvaramia, for example? Yeah.
Or Kharshiladze might start thinking, why Kobakhidze? I can be a better PM. And I'm sure he can be. Yeah.
I think, yeah.
So that is a cracks, exactly. But what you described, I think it is this one push deal, the system for Bidzina. That looks like that way. And I would add that he decided to redesign system in a possibly worst possible time. I mean, this is the worst time to go to one man. I mean, yes, Kobakhidze will deliver for a time, but he could not actually. I mean, he promised a number of things, and actually our next question goes to that exactly, especially reset with Americans, with Trump. He could not deliver.
Okay, let me put the question. So that came from Eka. Thank you, Eka, for a very lengthy and informative question, because it saves us time of giving a background. So the first, Secretary Rubio criticized Georgian Dream. Then Trump congratulated Kavelashvili. After that, Bidzina snubs the ambassador. Now a US senator is engaged with Kobakhidze. So can you explain what's going on? And if they don't recognize the GD government, why meet them?
Well, I think that there are some pragmatic considerations on the screen and on the display. US does not fully recognize this government, but US does recognize that this government exists and they're in power. So they're not kind of denial of reality or something like that. I think that Bidzina's lobbyists worked very hard and they managed to squeeze out of the Trump administration a very generic congratulation letter, which he sent it to Romanian president as well and to others, but they're legally elected, this guy is not. However, that is just a gesture. When it comes to the real things, foreign policy comes from the Mr. Rubio, who just answered the question and put a word of the anti-American and Georgian government in the one sentence. While not directly putting it, and we talked about it in the last program. And now they send a guy, and we just week ago, not week, but few days ago actually, we saw the statement of US Embassy when there was a situation, ambassador requesting to meet Bidzina Ivanishvili to deliver, and he just plainly refused to do that. So why would he refuse and everything goes well and they recognize? He just did not want to. There are two things, of course. First, he did not want to accept those conditions, and second, as you said, he tries to distance himself and says, I'm not a politician, meet president or meet a PM, but Americans will not do that. So I think that to Kobakhidze, I think that was lost attempt of Americans to deliver their messages. I don't think it will be successful, because Kobakhidze is not the sane person to discuss any step backs. And I think that now Georgian Dream will go to the new turn of the paranoia and the madness. I mean, that's how it looks like, unfortunately. Because, look, senator comes 3 days earlier, delivers messages, and in 2 days, Melia is arrested in a way he was arrested. So it doesn't look they got any messages from that. I mean, it doesn't look that they appreciated anything what senator said.
Yeah,
so
that reminds me of one joke, and I'll tell it later. So carry on and yeah.
Well, I think that sums it up. Americans recognize that Georgian Dream exists. They recognize that they're in power, but they do not recognize them as a legitimate power, and that goes for most of European countries. I mean. Normally, it's our job of the Georgian society to rid ourselves from this illegal regime, and the West would help us. But so far, we were not very successful in that, and blame goes to many places, including some of it to opposition. So, yes, that's the situation. United States or European Union aren't going to deploy some forces to kick Georgian Dream out, and that's what Georgian Dream is counting on, to stay in power with that. So we need to show to the Western. I mean, you talked about it in your, I think 2 or 3 programs, and you keep repeating with other, and that's a proper message. This is a combination of 2, outside and inside efforts. We need to have both of them. So now all this message is delivered. Foreign effort worked. Now we need to go to I think the season 2 of the protests, of the pressure, of the non-violent expression of our disregard to this government as a government. I think that needs to now restart it and reboot it again, so West sees and the United States sees that we are still fighting with this regime. I think that would be a good addition to whatever Americans or Europeans trying to do.
Okay, so to say a few words about Eka's question here is, okay, I mean, whether you recognize the Georgian Dream as a legitimate government or not, they are de facto running this country, and this is what the United States basically sees. And obviously, meeting them is exactly in this capacity. So they need to meet de facto rulers of the country. So, second thing is that why, for example, the US ambassador asked for a meeting with Bidzina Ivanishvili and not Kobakhidze, for example. And this is exactly what it means, that they don't recognize Kobakhidze's government as legitimate government. They wanted to deliver the message that was coming from Secretary Rubio and from State Department to the real ruler of this country, which is Bidzina Ivanishvili. And by the way, in a statement that Ivanishvili himself put out, he stated there that he suggested ambassador to meet GD Prime Minister Kobakhidze, but she turned this down. So this is I think the very obvious signal that there is a problem of recognition of Georgian Dream government. Also, I think it is important to look into details here. Okay, what Kobakhidze does living between statements, from statement to statement. And when the Secretary Rubio's letter came to Georgia, when he congratulated Georgian people, not Georgian government, on the Independence Day, Kobakhidze basically stated that that was the deep state. That was the deep state, apparently, that was controlling the State Department. Then when another letter came to GD President Kavelashvili from Trump's administration, and basically I was not able to find any English original version of it, so I am 100% sure that the Trump administration didn't write it in Georgian, and the certain Kimberley law provided some kind of translation back into English. So that, and Kavelashvili is saying, I think he said it today, that it came through the US Embassy. But I'm 100% sure that if it came from the US Embassy, then they could simply put out the English version of the letter. But whatever. So when the letter came to
I think it came from the lobbyist groups. I mean, that's
right. Then Kobakhidze started talking that, okay, here we go. So the Trump's administration is apparently not under deep state control, but Rubio's Secretary of State.
Unfortunately, we lost Rubio, yes, to deep state.
Yeah, this is what he is saying. And then we had the story with the ambassador asking for a meeting, then Bidzina turning down this meeting, and Senator Daines visiting Georgia on a tour, by the way. So, I mean, these are not, in my view, coordinated actions. He was meeting the major business he had in Azerbaijan. He was meeting the President Aliyev.
Correct.
And he was kind of touring the region.
Maybe they asked him, by the way, to go and to say something.
But yeah, the point what I was making, that this is not something like that, they're very much coordinated. And I don't think that Senator Daines was either delivering message from Rubio necessarily to Kobakhidze, because if it was meant, if this message was meant to Kobakhidze, then the ambassador would have delivered it to Kobakhidze.
Possible that he had some communication. Yeah.
About how the Georgian Dream acts now, and the Kobakhidze being phase of it is, you are 100%. I agree with you 100% that they do absolutely opposite what allegedly United States is asking from them to do for the restart of the relationship. And I told you that a joke came to my mind, and I'm going to tell this joke here. So there is a king who wants to marry his only daughter to a perfect man. And they early start the selection process early, and all corners of the world the suitors are coming, and they are choosing from thousands first, then hundreds, then tens, and finally there is a lucky one. The princess makes her choice, and this guy happens to be from Georgia. Okay. And not only from Georgia, but he's from Svaneti. Okay. For those who don't know where Svaneti is, that's a highlandic part of Georgia in the western Georgia. The wonderful place with wonderful people, but somehow these people have this reputation of being fierce and not necessarily very smart. Of course, it is misconception. They are as smart as any other Georgians are, but probably all Highlanders elsewhere in the world have this reputation. Okay, so here he is, like the tall and handsome and all that, and a little bit naive looking, but apparently the princes are into these kind of guys. So the king meets him and tells him, yeah, you are lucky, my daughter chose you, but that's not the end of it. So I think there are at least two things you have to prove to become, my son-in-law, right? And first you have to prove that you are strong enough and smart enough and brave enough to defend my daughter when needed, and you also have to prove that you are man enough and experienced enough to make her happy. So there are two rooms, and you have to go through them. And in the third room, there is a priest. And we ourselves will be there, and you got married. So in the first room, there is a lion. So what you have to do, you have to fight this lion, make him into submission, and get a handshake from a lion. And then you move to the second room. In that room, you have a beautiful lady who is ready to make love with you. And you have to prove that you are, man enough to make her happy, right? Yeah. And once you're done with that, then there is a priest to marry you. I know where it's going, So, and the thing starts, and there are kind of noise coming out from the first room, and the lion is roaring. There is fight going there, and these noises subside at some point. Apparently, he moved to the second room, and from that room, then the woman is screaming out there, and then this noise also subsides, and speak and span in 10 minutes. Guy is smiling, standing in the third room. Girl is happy, obviously, and priest is ready to start the ceremony, etc., but king is suspicious. So, and he takes the guy on the side and says that, give me some details, how did it go, right? And the guy goes like, the first assignment was tough. Making love with a lion, yeah, that was tough business. But, to fight the woman and get a handshake, that was the easy part. And the king calls the guards. The princess starts crying. So I think that this is what I think Kobakhidze and the Georgian Dream is doing, basically, with the Americans. Okay, agree. Let's move to the Nia's question that we have about these embassies. What do the Polish and French embassy warnings really mean? And should we expect the same treatment entering their countries?
Yeah, I think that's better you to answer it, because it's a EU thing. So yeah, they issued a warning about the being careful in Georgia. Yes, I mean it's a warning when there is a civil war or there's a cell or natural catastrophe. I mean they're warning their own citizens that don't go to Georgia, or if you go, be cautious. That never happened especially with Polish. I clearly can't recall it.
I think the devil is in the details there, because in that statement that came from the embassies, it says that, be cautious, especially if you were part of the demonstrations, because you can be fined right when crossing the border, or basically rejected to go in Georgia. or even arrested.
Yep.
Okay? And obviously, I mean, there are grounds for these statements.
Yep.
And quite a lot of number of EU nationals, the French, Polish, Germans, British, Britain is not part of EU anymore, but they were denied entry in Georgia. And of course, I mean, maybe not tomorrow and not the day after, but we will get the mirror treatment. And don't be surprised that when you go to Germany or France or Italy or elsewhere, at some point, there will be more and more Georgians denied to entry. I mean, this is how it works. But what makes things worse is not just that, but the response from the Georgian authorities. Because, look, it's interesting how Papuashvili, the chairman of the one-party parliament, responded to this. He said that, what other country, what the nationals of the other countries have to do with the protests in Georgia?
Yep.
I mean, this is a very bad statement because, for example, I lived in United Kingdom, in Belgium, in Netherlands, and I attended some of those demonstrations in those countries when I had some sympathy to those people. And the whole idea of democracy and free country is that, and that everyone has right to attend any demonstration, and no matter which country they represent or which country they are nationals of. And what Papuashvili is implying that now the Georgia is a new Iran, basically, and some of the people from other nationalities don't have right to attend rallies here. So this is simply unthinkable. And the second, I really want to quote Kobakhidze, is not necessarily about this when he attacked German ambassador, but look what he said. It was about when German ambassador attended Mzia Maglobeli's trial. And what Kobakhidze said that, I'm quoting him, "We do not expect an apology." Why? Because legal principles are upside down in Europe. All of this is tragic. German authorities don't give a damn about legal principles, rule of law, a legal state, human rights, and independent judiciary. I think, come on, Kobakhidze, completed all his degrees in Germany, Düsseldorf University. I mean, this is what he were taught there? I don't know. But, I mean, when you make this kind of statements, what do you expect from the EU countries when you attack their ambassadors, when you attack their nationals, citizens? So I think that and also Georgian people need to realize that it's just a matter of time when they will be denied to entry to the EU countries, because this is what Russia does. This is what Belarus does when they are not allow countries of the democratic states back into their countries.
Correct.
Yeah. Then Georgia is acting as Russia and Belarus.
Exactly.
And,
we are in same.
That's what it is.
There is one more question, I think.
Okay, do you want to read out that question too?
Does your podcast only cover politics? Surprisingly, yes. Can you say a few words about the football, okay? The Champions League final is on Saturday. Do you think will lift the trophy? Well, my personal opinion that Liverpool will win the Champions League final. So that's it. That's how I'm interested in the.
Yeah, you seem to be very much into football because it's not Liverpool.
I know, but I want Liverpool to win.
Okay, obviously yes. This podcast covers politics, but also football can be part of politics or any other sport.
There was a football war in Latin America.
Politics.
Yeah.
I mean. Of course, I mean, we wish Quara all the
Yeah, by the way, we wish him
obviously.
all the best. We want his Paris Saint-Germain to win the league, and yes,
we want him to lift this trophy. But also, what I want to say that maybe I'm a bit naive there, but I want him to dedicate this match or whatever his performance. I believe that it will be a brilliant performance. I hope he scores there, but I hope that he dedicates this match to the political prisoners in Georgia. The boys and girls of his age, by
Yep.
the way, who are fighting for some of the other young people to have similar opportunity as he has.
What point you made, it's a, I think, very fine point, that Kvara dedicating this win to all young people who are now in prison to the political reason and express, that would be a beautiful gesture. I think that would elevate him from just a successful sportsman to a figure of the national revere. And I mean, many more people are gonna respect him, not only as a football player, which he's already respected because he's really talented, but as a person, as a human being. And I think when it counts, this is way more important, because at some point you have to retire from football. You can't be a football player.
By the way, match is tonight, and this show will be aired on Sunday. So on Sunday, when the show is aired, so we would know by the time whether Kvara lifted the trophy or not.
Again, all the best to him, but I hope that Liverpool wins this year. They will definitely gonna win a league. I mean,
Well, they did already.
They did, yeah, they did already.
You are not necessarily Mr. Current Affairs about football.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for watching us, listening to us. Please like us, subscribe to us, and we'll see you next week.